The lights in the forest. Trigger warning. This episode contains intense suspense, psychological horror, and elements of the supernatural. Viewer discretion is advised. Tonight's story follows John, a nature lover, who, like Alex, Sarah, and the others, is about to face something beyond his understanding. The countdown continues to Night 11. I've always felt at home in the woods. They're my escape, my way of shutting out the noise of the world. Whenever things got overwhelming, a walk in the forest was all I needed to clear my mind, to feel at peace. But tonight, that feeling was gone. It started out like any other evening walk. The air was crisp, biting in that way only late December brings, with the forest quiet and still. I knew these woods by heart, every turn and hidden path, so I wasn't worried as darkness began to settle around me. But about 20 minutes in, I noticed something strange. Through the thick trees, barely visible between the branches, there was a light, a faint, flickering glow, like Christmas lights hanging from somewhere deep within the forest. It didn't make any sense. There were no houses this far out, no reason for anyone to be hanging lights in the middle of nowhere. But as I looked, the lights seemed to shift, creating a faint trail deeper into the woods. There was something mesmerizing about them, a warm invitation that felt almost comforting in the cold night. It sounds ridiculous, but a part of me wanted to follow them. I shook my head, trying to brush off the feeling, but the lights didn't fade. They hovered there, flickering, calling to me, and against my better judgment, I found myself stepping off the main trail, heading deeper into the trees. After a few minutes, I realized I'd wandered farther than I'd meant to. The air felt colder here, the branches heavier, like they were reaching out, closing in around me. The lights were the only thing guiding me now, small dots of color that glowed just bright enough to keep me moving forward. And then, as I got closer, I noticed something strange. They weren't just random lights. They were symbols, glowing, intricate shapes that I didn't recognize. Stars, twisted loops, and other odd patterns I couldn't place, all hanging from branches like decorations, yet feeling wrong. Each symbol seemed alive, its edges flickering, casting shadows that danced along the trees. I stopped in front of one, trying to make sense of it. It was shaped almost like a star, but with rough, jagged edges, as if it had been carved hastily. Inside the light, I thought I saw something move, a dark shadow that shifted as I stared. My skin prickled, a shiver running down my spine. I wanted to turn back, to leave this strange part of the forest, but the lights kept calling, pulling me forward. It was like I'd stepped into another world, a place that existed outside of time. The further I walked, the quieter the forest became. The usual sounds of animals, rustling leaves, even the wind had disappeared. All I could hear was my own footsteps, crunching in the underbrush, echoing in the silence. Then, just ahead, I saw it. The lights had gathered into a perfect circle, forming a glowing perimeter around an open space. In the center of the circle was a flat stone altar, old and weathered, surrounded by symbols etched into the earth, patterns and marks that seemed to pulse with a faint glow, filling the air with an ancient energy. I approached slowly, every step feeling heavier, my heart racing. There was something powerful here, something that felt wrong. It was as if the air itself had thickened, pressing down on me, urging me to leave. But I couldn't look away. The symbols around the altar seemed to shift as I stared, each one twisting and writhing like it was alive, like it was part of something dark and ancient. And then I heard it. John. The voice was soft, barely more than a whisper, but it was there, clear as day, echoing through the trees. I spun around, my heart pounding, but there was no one there. The voice came again, louder this time, like someone was standing just behind me, breathing down my neck. John, come closer. I wanted to run, to escape this strange place, but my feet wouldn't move. I felt rooted to the spot, trapped by the weight of the forest, by the ancient symbols watching me. The lights around the clearing flickered, casting shadows that stretched across the trees like dark, reaching hands. And then, out of the mist that had begun to gather around the altar, a figure started to form. It was dark, barely more than a shadow, but it was tall and thin, its edges blurred, like it was made of smoke. It had no face, no features, just an empty silhouette that stood there, watching me. The air grew colder, a heavy silence filling the clearing. I took a step back, my heart racing, but the figure raised its hand, reaching toward me, and I felt an invisible force tugging me forward, drawing me into the circle of lights. The whisper grew louder, echoing in my mind, filling me with a fear I couldn't shake. John, you're almost here. I could feel the weight of its gaze, cold and piercing, as if it could see straight through me. It was like the forest itself was alive, watching, waiting for me to step into its trap. And then, slowly, the figure moved closer, gliding across the ground without a sound, its hand still outstretched. I felt myself being pulled toward it, each step dragging me deeper, closer to the altar, to the ancient symbols pulsing in the earth. In a last, desperate moment, I broke free, turning and running through the trees, branches clawing at my arms, my legs, as I tore away from the clearing. I didn't dare look back, too afraid of what I might see. When I finally stumbled out of the forest, my breath was coming in short, panicked gasps. I ran all the way to my house, slamming the door shut behind me, locking it tight. My heart was racing, my mind still filled with the image of that dark figure, of the symbols etched in the ground. I tried to shake it off, to convince myself it had all been some kind of hallucination. But when I looked out the window, back toward the woods, I saw them. The faint lights, flickering in the distance, like they were waiting for me to return. I closed the curtains, backing away from the window, but as I turned, I noticed something on the floor, a small, crumpled piece of paper with faint writing scratched across it. My hands shook as I picked it up, barely able to read the words scrawled in dark ink. Night 11. The forest remembers. I dropped the note, my mind racing, fear twisting in my chest. It was like the forest itself was alive, reaching out from the darkness, trying to pull me back. I could feel its presence, that dark figure watching me, waiting like it wouldn't rest until I returned. And then I heard it again, the whisper, faint but unmistakable, drifting through the silence. John, come back. I froze, heart pounding, my breath shallow. It wasn't over. Whatever I'd disturbed in the forest, it was coming for me, drawing me back to the clearing, to the circle of lights, to the ancient symbols etched into the ground. I backed away from the door, every nerve in my body on edge, but I knew deep down that there was no escaping it. The forest had marked me, claimed me, and now it wanted me back. I don't know how long I stood there, trapped in the silence, waiting for the whisper to fade. But as I turned, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye, a faint glow coming from the edge of the window. I moved closer, pulling back the curtain, and there, standing just beyond the tree line, was the shadowy figure, its dark form barely visible against the night sky. It raised its hand, pointing toward the woods, and I felt a shiver run down my spine, a cold, unshakable fear that settled deep in my bones. The whisper came again, soft and insistent, filling my mind with a single command. "Come back, John. We're waiting." I don't know what I saw out there, but it's like the forest itself was alive, like it wanted me there. And now it's calling me back. Thanks for watching Night 11 of the 12 Nights of Terror. If you're still here, come back tomorrow. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because I think the forest has one last.